we have Dr. Suneendher Singh with us, the head of National Institute of Biologicals, Delhi, and the former Drug Control General of India. Welcome, sir. In your experience, what are the major challenges faced by the regulatory department in India?
Well, the biggest challenge which we are facing in the regulation of drugs in our country, as has been highlighted by Dr. Mashelkar also in his report, which was prepared in 2003, are primarily dealing with the lack of manpower, adequate manpower, both in the central and the state drug inspectorate, the inadequate infrastructure, whether it is for having adequate laboratories for testing, the training of the manpower is concerned, and also one of the biggest challenges for us is the state-to-state variation in the interpretation and enforcement of Drugs and Cosmetics Act and rules and the various provisions which have been laid down it. So these are the main challenges which we are facing, and now the government is actually seized of these problems and has taken number of measures to strengthen it.
Most of the drugs which advertises are not following the laws properly. How this can be controlled?
I think now it's a time that the Drug and the Magic Remedies Act, the Magic Remedies Act which was there, it needs to be a little bit brought in tune with the changing times, and especially the electronic media also has to be brought under its ambit. And the earlier to do it, better it is for us, because this type of advertisement by various stakeholders, they create confusion in the mind of the consumer. So what is required is that the provisions which are already existent, they should be enforced much more diligently and with lot of stringency, and especially the advertisements which are coming on the electronic media. I think the government needs to enact quickly new statutory provisions to regulate them, to see to that consumer is not taken for a ride by various unscrupulous elements.
So there is a pharmacovigilance program in India, but it is not implemented properly. What are the steps taken by the government to make it successful?
Well, we have to understand that this pharmacovigilance program is just about 3 years old. It was launched in July 2010. But if we see, the program has created awareness amongst especially the medical fraternities. Now it's almost covering more than 100 medical colleges across the country, and the sensitization has now spread amongst the various clinicians, the practitioners and healthcare professionals that there is a need to report adverse drug reactions. And recently the government has also tried to rope in the consumer associations. We had 2 workshops in this regard. One was at Bangalore and Mumbai, where consumer associations, they were also sensitized about the need to spread awareness amongst the consumers, that they should emphasize on the physicians that if they have any adverse reactions, their physician should report to the National Coordinating Center at India Pharmacopoeia Commission. And what we are also envisaging is that press advertisements should be being brought out now, where the general public is being sensitized about this pharmacovigilance program. And I agree with you that we have got a long way to go, but the steps are being taken in this direction. Especially now what we have done is, till this year, beginning of this year, the pharmacovigilance was basically training the people in the pharmacology department of the medical colleges and the pharmacists to report ADRs and to sensitize the clinicians. Now we have come out with organizing CMEs for the clinicians itself. And in this regard, only just a couple of days back, we had a CME at Tanda in Himachal Pradesh, and there was a very good response. And there was an earlier one at Srinagar, where also there was a very heartening response, and the clinicians participated in it very actively. And now we are going to see more and more of these CMEs all over the country being organized to create awareness amongst the medical fraternity that they should report adverse drug reaction. And the hesitation which is there in the clinicians is primarily because of the misplaced concern which they have got in their mind, is that it can result in some sort of regulatory action against them. Negligence also, and some sort of action could be initiated against them if they report these adverse reactions. I think this is one area where we have to reassure the clinicians, the healthcare professionals, that this pharmacovigilance program is non-punitive. And I think in this regard, the drug control officials at the state level, they've got a very important role to play, because they are the ones who are basically involved in enforcing these provisions all over the country as such.
Can we implement this program in all major medical institutions? so that we can monitor every patient for any adverse event?
Yeah, the way we have structured, like if you see world over, the pharmacovigilance program is more voluntary in nature. It is left to the healthcare professionals to report the adverse reaction. But in India, we have tried a model which is, I think, to the best of my knowledge, the first time in the world as such, that is more proactive. So what has been envisaged at the government level is to open a pharmacovigilance cell in each pharmacology department of more than 369 medical colleges across the country. So that what happens that there is these people from the pharmacology department, they can go to the various departments in the hospitals and ask them if there is an adverse reaction and report it to it. So that's done in a more proactive manner. And now besides medical colleges, we are also enrolling in this the private sector hospitals, the medical institutions, and I'm sure over the next 5 or 6 years a greater awareness would be created amongst the medical fraternity. And you will be pleased to know that by now, over the last 3 years, we have collected more than 60,000 ADRs, which is the largest number of ADRs reported from a developing country to the Uppsala Monitoring Center. And our score also by the Uppsala Monitoring Center has been shown to be very high, and it's almost 0.78. The highest score is 1, and which is much more than even in the developed countries as such, where the score varies from 0.3 to 0.5. And we expect that this program by end of next year, by 2014, will be touching a score of 0.8, which is reasonably very good score for a country like India, which has got a pharmacovigilance program which is just 3 years old.
Sir, is there any platform for a common man to communicate with the CDSCO in this program?
Yeah, here what we have put systems in place. It is not CDSU. Earlier the program was rolled out by CDSU in 2010, but in 2011, April 2011, Ministry has entrusted this program to Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission. So it is now one of the mandates of Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission to implement this program through the length and the breadth of the country, and it is also acting as a national coordinating center for this program. And we have got this VigiFlow software of Uppsala, which has been given to us. So through that, these the pharmacovigilance cell in each medical colleges, they link up the data, and if there is any practitioner in a nursing home or a healthcare professional who is working on his own and he wants to report the adverse drug reaction, he can pass on this information to the nearest medical college where there is a pharmacovigilance cell, and they will transmit this data to the National Coordinating Center. So a linkage like this has been developed, and there has been a very good response from various associations which have got associated by giving this data, and that's why I'm saying that we have been able to have now a very large quantity of data at our disposal, that is more than 60,000 ADRs, and this is going to become much more significant in coming years to come. And now the process of initiating the analysis of the data to detect signals so as to advise CDSO on regulatory interventions, so that we ultimately are able to take decisions to protect the health of the consumer.
So does our regulatory board has any control over the prescription of drugs by the doctors, like overusage or irrational combination?
Actually, there has to be, I totally agree with you, there has to be a rational use of the drugs, especially the antibiotics in our own country as such. And this is needs to be emphasized. The sooner the better for all the conditions, that they should use in a much more rational manner and prescribe it only where there is utmost necessity to prescribe the drugs. And in this regard, what we are trying to now, with the being envisaged in the government, is to have a antimicrobial resistance monitoring cells to be set up across in various medical colleges and medical institutions, where the microbiology department would be the focal department to collect the data in respect of the especially the resistance to various antibiotics which is emerging in the hospitals, in the ICUs, in the wards, and to have first time in our country a data at a national level which will help the policy makers to take decisions so that we are able to have policy initiatives taken to have rational use of drugs, especially antibiotics, to be taken in our country, so that we don't have issues of emergence of drug resistance.
India is one of the largest generic exporters in the world. What will be the future of pharma companies in this sector?
Well, you see, we are all proud that Indian pharma industry has taken lot of strides over 2 decades as such, and now it is the third largest pharmaceutical producer in the world as such, and we are exporting drugs to more than 200 countries and vaccines to more than 151 countries. And now the way our regulatory system is being strengthened by both at the central and state level, I think we will be able to push the benchmark further for assuring the quality and safety and efficacy of the drugs which are available to the consumer within the country and all over the world as such. And once we are able to ensure this, I think it would be just a matter of time that from third we might become the second largest producer, and maybe another 10 or 15 years we might be the largest producer of pharmaceutical products in the country. And the reason for that is availability of large scientific manpower which is available at our disposal, and also the cost benefits which we enjoy vis-a-vis to other developing countries.
There are reports that India is exporting spurious drugs. How does Indian government acknowledge this issue?
Well, just to carry on what I said earlier, that as our global presence increases and Indian pharma products, they move into the international commerce, there will always be challenges. So we'll have to grapple with these issues where the drugs made in India would be labeled as spurious. And we have recently seen issues where the drugs manufactured outside India have been shipped to another country and have been labeled made in India. And these are the challenges which I think now both the drug regulatory system at the central level, state level, with the support of the government, has to see to it that we are able to address these problems at the international level and reassure the confidence of the international community on the quality of drugs which are coming from our country. And spurious drug is not a problem, as you are aware of it, that we have done survey. There has been a Sierra Pharma study done about a couple of years back, and then there was a study done by CDSU, and we have seen that the spurious drugs are almost non-existent. It's almost less than 0.45% in our country, or maybe it's 0.046% in our country, which is a very and secondly, spurious drugs is a basically economic activity. And as we all know that the cost of API which goes into making the drugs as such is much less in our country. So it's less lucrative to get into the problems of making the drugs which are spurious. The bigger issue in our country is drugs not of standard quality, and this is because of the problems of good distribution practices which are there, because we are a hot humid country with a hot humid climate, and drugs may not be stored at appropriate temperatures by the chemist or the retail outlets because of issues of power, because of the inadequate infrastructure. And this is one area which we need to address and see to it that our people really get good quality drugs available.
Where does India stand in global blood safety, and what are the government policies in this?
Well, the blood safety in our country, I can reinforce that it's as good as any part of the world or the developed country as such is concerned. But the gap which was there was about the hemovigilance program, and this is one area which we have now tried to plug the gaps, and we launched the hemovigilance program across the country in December 2012. And this program has picked up very rapidly because we already had a template and infrastructure of pharmacovigilance which was available, and now we are finding there is an overwhelming response from the various stakeholders, especially our colleagues and friends and clinicians in the Department of Transfusion Medicine and the blood banks. They are coming forward to participate in the various CMEs and the workshops, and they have also started enrolling under this program and started reporting the ADR's data. And I think another 1 year we will be part of the International Hemovigilance Network, and we will also be uplinking our data which we are getting from our country and sharing with the various other member countries. And this will reinforce the confidence of not only the Indian consumer but also the people who come from outside our country to have medical treatment done in our country, that the blood which is available in our country is safe.
Being the head of National Institute of Biologicals India, can you please brief the functions of NIB?
Well, the National Institute of Biologicals, this was envisaged in 1992 by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, because at that time it was there was a vision that in coming 2 or 3 decades, the biologicals will be the mainstay of healthcare system as such, because the chemical entities would be overtaken by biologicals. So we need to have a state-of-art institute in our country which can, especially laboratory, which can test these biotech products. And these biotech products, as we all know, these are large molecules difficult to characterize and difficult to test also as compared to the chemical entities which are small molecules. So the primary objective of this institute is to ensure that the quality of biologicals, biotech products, especially like insulin, erythropoietin, hormones, or anti-cancer drugs like Herceptin, rituximab, or blood products like factor 8, factor 9, albumin, diagnostic kits which are used in the programs like HIV, hepatitis B, C, they are of the best quality available, and they meet the standards which have been laid down by the regulatory authorities in our country.
In the present 5-year plan, Indian government has proposed some drugs for free of cost to the Indian citizens. Are we equipped to manage the quality of this program?
Well, since this is a very ambitious project to give drugs free of cost to the Indian population at a scale which has not been done earlier, so the real challenge in this would be assuring the quality of the drugs. And in this I think that the government laboratories itself may not have adequate infrastructure to test all the batches and the number of drugs which are going to be used under this program. So we would need to identify labs in the private sector also, and the best thing would be to identify the labs which are NABL accredited and comply with ISO 17025, and they could be roped in to testing these drugs so that we can ensure that the best quality drugs are available to our Indian consumer, which are being given free of cost in the various government programs.
Do you think good manufacturing policies are properly followed in India?
Well, as far as the Schedule M is concerned, I think both the state and center, they are very diligently implementing this Schedule M. But now the Schedule M itself is very old and would need to be updated, because this Schedule M is based on WHO guidelines which were framed in 1992, and this Schedule M actually got enforced from 2001, and then from 30th of June 2005, even the older units which had been in existence before the Schedule M came, they also had to comply with this. But now a lot of changes have come in the regulatory scenario as far as the pharma manufacturing units is concerned, and I think now we need to update our Schedule M and bring it at par at the latest regulatory norms. But as far as the existing Schedule M is concerned, I think this is being enforced in the letter and spirit by both the state and the central regulatory authorities, and wherever the compliance is not there, they are taking the necessary action.
Do we have any control over the usage of chemical additives in cosmetics?
This is the first time I think now the registration of cosmetics have been introduced in our country, and this registration would bring a lot of systems in place so that we can assure the quality of cosmetics which are being available. However, there is need to strengthen the laboratories, infrastructure and training of the manpower to test the various cosmetics, because there's a huge range of cosmetics which are available in our country. So the laboratory infrastructure would need to be geared to test all of them so that we can ensure that the cosmetics which are not meeting the standards, they can be weaned off from the market.
The quality of herbal products are not properly maintained as there is no standardization. What are the impacts of this on Ayurvedic products, and how is it maintained?
Ayurveda, the real challenge is for laying down the standards for various formulations which are available, and even the ones which are having the same name. So there will also be a variations, because depending upon the area from where the herbs are sourced. So there is a big challenge for us to standardize them, and I think this is one area which Ayush is now seized off, that how to address this issue of having standards in place for the various Ayurvedic drugs. And we still have a long way to go in this area.
So there are reports that alternative medicines can be used for treatment of various diseases like cancer. What are the steps taken by the Indian government to integrate modern medicine with alternative medicines?
Well, this would need a harmonization of the activities which are being carried out the various departments, so that, as you rightly said, that the issues with regard to whether it's a chemotherapy or diabetes or hypertension, with the various claims, whether it is Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha or homeopathic drugs and the allopathic drugs which are available. So there needs to be some fair degree of harmonization to be brought, so that the consumer is not confused. He is given information which rather enlightens him and enables him or empowers him to make decisions so that he takes the right type of medicine under a prescription and is benefited from it. This is an area where I think the government needs to be working to harmonize the various systems of medicines which are available, whether it's allopathic or Indian system of medicine which is there.
Thank you, sir.